Now that we've gotten a good look at how to build strokes in the program, let's take a look at the fill side of things. A good tool to start with for that would be the paint bucket tool. Now our fill also has a color associated with it. Right now mine is set to black, but I can just click on that color chip and choose another color. So I'll choose blue here. And if I click with the paint bucket, I should be able to fill up an object. What I'm looking for is a closed vector shape. If I click out here in the stage, my tool's not going to do anything for me. But if I click inside this closed area that I've created, I'll create my first fill shape. Now the first important thing we need to know about fills is that they are separate objects. They'll always be separate objects inside of Flash. If I go right back to my selection tool and select this fill, you'll notice I can select it separate from the outline around it. And by selecting the fill, I can just grab it and move it. And there you can see that it's disconnected from that stroke that we used to create it. Any set of strokes that forms a closed area can be used to make a fill shape. Let's try a different tool. I'll go up to my straight line tool here. Notice it picks up the current stroke settings, and I can just draw a quick line across here, creating a closed area on this side. And if I go right back to my paint bucket tool, I can drop that blue color in and create a fill shape. Our selection tool works similarly on these fill shapes as it does on our strokes. If I get near the defining edge of any fill, you'll see that we have the same cursor, and if I click and drag, I can reshape the outline of that shape just like I can reshape a stroke. It's interesting to note that if you've got a fill and a stroke right on top of each other like we do here, grabbing and reshaping the curve reshapes both the stroke and the fill. So these actually act as though they're one single object. That'll work down here as well. But don't forget that our fill and strokes are really separate objects and can be pulled apart at any time. Now let me just clean up my workspace a little. I've got this fill selected, so I'm just going to hit the delete key and that'll remove it. And I can double click on the orange stroke here. And holding down shift, I can double click on the red and the green and select them all at once and hit delete and clear those as well. That'll make room for some other tools. Now what I'd like to look at is some other fill tools. In addition to the paint bucket, we can also create a fill directly by using the brush tool. The brush tool has standard paintbrush settings like size and shape. And again, it's going to be a fill tool, so it's going to use the current fill color, whatever it is, in this case blue. When I grab the brush, I can create a nice shape with it. That looks like a nice smooth vector shape. And again, if we just switch back to our selection tool, I can grab the edge of this shape and show that it's not a stroke with a certain thickness, but it's actually an enclosed area that's filled with that blue color. As you can see, so far our tools are kind of divided along the lines of whether they make a stroke or a fill. My pencil tool is going to be making strokes, as does the line tool, and we saw that my brush and my paint bucket is going to be making fills. We even have a tool underneath the paint bucket called the ink bottle that's kind of like a paint bucket for strokes. My current setting for strokes is a red color, and if I go down to this fill we made with the brush stroke and click on the edge, you can see that a click will create a stroke around that fill shape. And again, that stroke is going to be separate actually from the original fill object. If I just double click it, I can select it. And you can see that not only can we make fills from strokes, but I can also make strokes from fills. Now in addition to that tool set, we've also got a set of tools up here that will make basic shapes. It shows up as a rectangle tool, but if I just click on it or hold my mouse there for a second, the rest of the tools pop up, and you can see I have a rectangle and an oval tool and some other primitive tools as well. If we just start with the rectangle tool, one interesting thing about this set is that these tools make strokes and fills at the same time. Now let me just change my settings here a little bit. I'm going to make a lighter colored orange fill, and I'll stick with the red stroke. We'll go out and drag out a rectangle, and you can see that I got the fill and all the strokes at the same time. Now this is still creating vectors just like the other tools did. If we switch back to our normal selection tool, you'll notice I can select the fill independently from the strokes. And if I double click on the strokes, I can go ahead and grab all of them surrounding that rectangle. Another great shortcut, let me click away from everything here for a moment, is if you double click on a fill that has strokes around it, it will automatically select the strokes and the fill. And of course, if I try to reshape this object, it'll reshape just like the other elements that we've worked with so far. We'll get the same kind of behavior from the oval tool. And with either of these tools, if you want to create a perfect square or a perfect oval, just hold down the shift key while you're dragging.